Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are going to get started today with today's webinar, Quiet Innovation for Healthy School Food. We've got a great audience today. We have a broad mix of participants from school food service directors to school nurses, people working in healthy environments within schools. We have in-school, out-of-school folks, but a whole bunch of great stakeholders. Thank you for taking the time for joining us. Before we start getting into it, I would like to go a little bit over some logistics. First of all, this is part of Healthy Schools Campaign's spring webinar series. We are on the 5th out of 6 webinars, I believe. The next one is the small business side of improving school food on May 1st. We hope, if you're interested, hope you'll join us, let people know. You can sign up on the link below. Also, all of the webinars that we have done have been archived with the slides and with the audio presentations on our website. So go again to the link below if you're interested in seeing some of the old or signing up for the new. A little bit more logistics. This webinar should run for about an hour. We are recording it and we will be making it available online. It should be up by the end of day on Wednesday. Also, when you exit the webinar, a short survey will pop up, so please, 2 questions, good, bad, constructive, we like it all. Also, at the end of our presentations, we are going to have a Q&A session. A chat will be held for about 15 minutes or so. You will be asking questions through your chat section, but actually it's going to be through the question box. So, there is an area that says questions on the webinar interface. Use that to ask questions. Actually, please ask questions at any point during the webinar, and we will get to them at the end, unless there's a specific reason that we should get to it right away. But please get your questions in the queue, and we will take care of them. So now, a little bit about Healthy Schools Campaign. Healthy Schools Campaign, we are a not-for-profit organization. We are located in Chicago. A lot of our work happens in Chicago on the grounds or regionally. Also, half of our work is national in scope, where we do a lot of work on policy. And all of our work is works on the intersection in the school environment where we do with health, nutrition, wellness. And in particular, it is school health with a focus on understanding on, in order to have a successful student, we need to have a healthy student. And we believe that we have a responsibility to make sure all of our students have equal opportunities for health, wellness, and quality education. So Quiet Innovation is the title of this webinar. So it's a slightly odd title, so I want to just talk a little bit about why and what we're thinking of. We say quiet innovations essentially because across the country, throughout our media, throughout the internet, we are hearing a lot about school food, but most often it's not about the innovation and the really creative improvements that are going on, but it's about pink slime, or it's about the packaging of school food, or it's about the overly processed nature of a lot of the food that we eat. However, what doesn't get the real attention and what doesn't get the coverage that we believe should be of great value are those quiet innovations, the things that aren't covered by the media, and the improvements that are being made by leaders in schools across the country day to day. So we have asked 3 school districts today, Chicago, St. Paul, and New York, to come and tell us about what they are doing to improve the quality of the food that they are serving to ensure healthier students. The things that they are not necessarily getting big media coverage on, but the things that they are doing day to day that substantively make a difference in our students and our children's lives. So today, we have 4 speakers. I will be giving more detailed introductions to the speakers later, but just so you have an understanding, Jean Ronnie from St. Paul Public Schools, Annie Lineberger from Chicago Public Schools, along with Jean Saunders from Chartwell Thompson Hospitality, and then Stephen O'Brien from New York Department of Education. Before I start introducing Jean, our first speaker, I would like to get a quick poll of everyone on our audience today. So quick question. Does your school cook fresh beef or chicken on site? We'd love you to take a moment, learn a little bit about that, and I am going to introduce Jean. Jean Ronnie is responsible for leading the Nutrition Services Custodial Department and the Print Copy Mail Center for the St. Paul Public Schools. I bet you she has lots of free time on her hands. The district has 39,000 students, with 73% of students eligible for free or reduced price meals, and over 70 languages and dialects spoken in that school district. Nutrition Services has been recognized nationally for innovation in menu development and marketing, farm-to-school and breakfast-to-go programs, and financial management systems. Jean is currently serving as the School Nutrition Association's Education Chair for 53,000 members. Okay, before we get started, let's take a quick look at our poll. So it looks like our answers, almost 20% are serving fresh prepared beef or chicken in their school. 26% say no way. So let's learn about the efforts of one school district and what they are doing to provide fresh protein in their school. So Jean, it's all you.
Well, thanks. This is a great question to be asking right before this particular presentation. Some of the things that we have been working on in St. Paul have been kind of our top 5. Mark had asked that we would really share that information. We have, of course, hopefully our slide's going to show up on screen. We can talk a little bit about our breakfast-to-go program. That's free for all, and we have participation rates of about 64%. So that has been a real top change for us over the years, being able to go from about 30% and doubling that. It's brought a lot of revenue to the program, as well as meeting the needs of our hungry and needier students in St. Paul. Milk was another effort that we made to change the nutritional value for our kids. We were able to lower the sugar content in our chocolate milk to 22 grams, and that went from about 27%, 28%. One of our districts around the corner actually went from 32 down to 22, so that was quite a shock for the kids, but they have adjusted. We also did make the decision to reduce or to continue to offer chocolate milk at lunch, but discontinue it at breakfast. We've made a dramatic increase in our farm-to-school program, despite it being very cold. In fact, it is snowing here today. Shame on us. It is very frustrating to have this kind of weather. But in the fall, we're able to do lots of local produce, and we even served roasted Brussels sprouts. We're really proud of our unlimited choice bar. It's when the students go through the regular line, they can load up on fruits and veggies, as many as they want. We don't tell them to limit. And then we're also offering legume salads and other protein items, one a day that the students can choose from. And of course, I think a lot of people are working on this, which is just trying to move away from so many breaded items. We haven't quite eliminated chicken nuggets and chicken patties, but we have reduced them significantly. Next slide. What I'd like to just touch on today specifically is what we've been doing around our fine feathered friends. And I promise to not steer you afoul of this topic. The next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with our chicken, and then later I'll talk about our turkey program. We had been really a little bit frustrated with the rotisserie chicken that was available through USDA. It was a breaded product, very inconsistent in size, and of course it had all that breading on it. So we had a lot of issues. It was a big storage issue, and we started thinking about, well, how could we maybe make some changes with our chicken, because the kids love it, and we are limited in our entree choices. Well, through our School Food Focus Partnership, that's a national organization that's looking to transform the foods that are available to school children, we began looking at that issue. And back in September of 2010, we actually debuted fresh chicken drumsticks on our menu. First, we went out to the chicken farm and processing facility, which is in the local area, and took a look at their processes, how they're doing, how can we feel that we're getting the best product for our students, and we were really impressed with the operation. Local company that's doing good work. They also use very rarely any antibiotics, so we felt good about the process as well. Then we took a look at how we could put this on the menu, and one of the biggest challenges was how would we menu chicken legs at a consistent basis that would meet the needs of the vendor. So through a lot of dialogue, we decided we would offer those every other week at a pretty much a set amount, and that met their needs because breasts and wings are what sell the most, and they've got thighs and legs left over. The chicken actually comes into us, next slide, as a fresh product, and because it hasn't been frozen, we don't have to deal with a whole lot of other issues. And of course, everyone is concerned about food safety, but we took a look and said, you know what, if anybody can cook a product safely, it's our school food service people. I think we have the best trained food safety experts. I would put our staff up against anybody's school food service staff, up against the local restaurant down the street that's handling raw chicken. So once we got our minds around that, we developed a training video, which we insisted that everybody watch and follow very specific processes. One of those was that if there's any leftover chicken at the end of the day, raw chicken, it must be served out and cooked the next day so that we don't have any leftover reheated chicken happening. You can see we have a lot of variety and options to incorporate into chicken drumsticks with a variety of flavors. The kids are wild about this chicken product. We serve one leg at the elementary level and two at the secondary level. And as you can see, just being able to replace breaded chicken nuggets and patties on a more frequent basis has been positive. And we found the price to be incredibly good for our program. So you may find that there's a local vendor that you could be looking at. Next slide, we will talk about turkey. We were able to, this was our turkey project was really something we just followed the footsteps of many of our really great directors in Minnesota who had already started working with a Ferndale market, which is in Cannon Falls, Minnesota. And this family-owned business has been doing just some great work with raising free-range turkeys for the last 70 years. They, of course, had a lot of need to or requests for their whole turkey products, but they had a lot of products that they weren't able to get rid of, and that happened to be what we wanted, which was ground turkey. So we found that that's a very competitive price product for us. It's actually delivered direct to our nutrition center. We're blessed with a central production facility, a nutrition center where we can store a lot of product, bake from scratch, cook from scratch. And in our nutrition center, we turn the ground turkey into a product that can be shipped out, chilled in cryovac bags, and then heated on site. The next slide will give you an idea of what we actually served. And this September, we rolled out turkey sloppy joes, and that was actually in place of beef sloppy joes. We, as I said, take this raw ground turkey and cook it in our nutrition center and mix it with our own homemade sauce. And one of the advantages of having a central kitchen is we have the ability really to manage the ingredients that go into sauces. And that's helping us get to where we need to be with our sodium in particular. When we do serve sloppy joes, we're using about 3,600 pounds of ground turkey. So it's been a real win-win for Ferndale markets as well as our nutrition center. So that's how we have made friends with our fine feathered friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. I think it's a fascinating story, and I think what's so interesting is also how a lot of your work has led to shared ideas and shared programming from other districts, one of which we're going to hear about right now. Before I introduce our friends from Chicago, I have another poll question to ask everyone, and related to the next one. Does your school have a farm-to-school program? Please take a moment to answer the question, and then I will introduce our next two speakers. Annie Lineberger is the Manager of Health and Wellness Promotion at the Chicago Public Schools. Annie provides leadership and administration in developing advocacy, policy approaches, and guidance to advance Chicago Public Schools' commitment to student health and wellness. Annie has worked in several local and international organizations to address socioeconomic and health disparities, including the Greater Chicago Food Depository, where she served as the Director of Programs for 2 years. In addition to Annie Leinberger, Gene Saunders, the Director of Marketing for Chartwell Thompson Hospitality, is going to be joining us to help us provide a little more context and color to the programs going on in Chicago. So I will be closing the poll, and it looks like 28% have, 1/3 of our audience has a farm-to-school program. 1/3 says sadly no, and the rest are not applicable. So we think that is a good framework to start seeing, to talk about what is going on in Chicago. So Annie and Jean, all yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in the webinar today to share some of the successes we've had at the Chicago Public Schools in addressing the nutritional value and the procurement of the food that we're serving to our students. This is Annie Leinberger talking, and I think I'm gonna take the lead, and then Jean and I will tag team, and she will add and edit as needed here. So CPS Nutrition Support Services is really, we view our role as supporting the academic community by providing nutritious and appealing meals. We really make our students our #1 priority. We feel like that's so important, especially considering the scale and scope of the services that we provide to students. We'll be hearing from New York in just a moment, but we in Chicago are the 3rd largest school district in the country. We serve over 407,000 students in our district, 83% of whom are eligible for free and reduced price meals. We also know that serving 76 million meals a year, and with the rates of food insecurity that many of our citizens in Chicago face, we're providing often the only meals that students receive throughout the course of the day, and so we really take our role very seriously. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight, I won't go through all of these initiatives that we've undertaken at CPS, but I'm going to highlight a few real achievements that we've been able to accomplish here at CPS, but those have all been in the context of really a broad commitment to student health and wellness. As again, we see, and I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here, our role in nutrition support services as being so integral in academic success. Next slide, please. So what we'll be highlighting today, and we're really going to focus on that last point, the farm-to-school program, but we've also had a lot of other great accomplishments, starting with our work to revise the nutrition standards here at the Chicago Public Schools. So in September of 2009, we convened a nutrition standards working group that brought together experts and local advocates that sort of went through research and best practices, including Harvard and the Institute of Medicine for breakfast and lunch, respectively. We finalized new menu standards in December of 2009 that were then launched in the fall of 2010. And so some of what we'll be talking about today reflects was sort of implemented as a result of the new nutrition standards that we established over the last few years, which, among other things, set requirements for daily fresh fruit, incorporate orange or dark leafy green vegetables every day. We've eliminated trans fats, incorporated more whole grains, and so we're really excited that now with the recent release of the new USDA guidelines, we're actually very close to meeting those standards already. So that has been really an enormous accomplishment for our district. We've also been able to implement salad bars in over 100 schools. The criteria that we've set for those schools in order to receive a salad bar is that they implement nutrition education for students throughout the school year as well. And the salad bars include vegetables and protein, also grain and bread components. And we want to make sure that in order to ensure that the program is successful, that the school dining staff is trained by our culinary team when a salad bar is put in place, that there is promotion to parents, to teachers, and also to students, and often, as much as we can, that promotion is done by students as well. We've provided teachers with nutrition education materials, and as I mentioned, we've really tried to incorporate all school stakeholders around the salad bars. So the next one is around healthier breakfast cereals, and this relates back to our nutrition standards, which upon adopting those standards require that our cereals contain at least 3 grams of fiber or 5 or fewer grams of sugar, which made us take another look at the cereals that we were serving, and we had to eliminate a lot of the most popular items. So we approached our vendors, and Kellogg's actually was very amenable and helped us bring in cereals like Kashi in bowl pack format for school food service, and because of the volume that we're providing. And additionally, some of the emerging manufacturers were able to meet our new nutrition standards with some of the popular taste profiles of the cereals that we had been serving previously, and we started serving those in fall of 2010. As for the RGDH-free milk, we approached our vendors, and this was sort of an easy win for us because at the same time that we were asking for this change, our vendors were also looking, our partners in the dairy industry were also looking at making that change. So we were happy about that as well. And I think if you could go to the next slide, please. We really took the initiative that Jean was just talking about in Minneapolis, I'm sorry, in St. Paul, and looked at how we also could capitalize on the opportunity to provide fresh-baked bone-in chicken, antibiotic-free, to our students. And so starting in the fall of 2011, CPS became the first and largest school system to serve chicken thighs and drumsticks on a weekly basis. In this school year, we're going to be purchasing about 2 million pounds of chicken legs, which started in October, where we looked at, we prepared fresh-baked chicken leg quarters through USDA commodities. And then we were really lucky and excited to collaborate with the USDA and Rachel Ray to actually develop a recipe that Rachel Ray named Winnie City Chicken to highlight those exciting changes to the menu and the new availability of this chicken on our menus. And then in November of 2011, we announced our antibiotic-free chicken drumsticks that we, in collaboration with School Food Focus and our and Chartwell Thompson, we purchased through the Miller Amish Country Poultry in Indiana. And the reviews from our students have just been incredible. We've had great success with this, and it tastes good. You walk into the school and it actually smells like chicken. And so it's been a great experience and definitely something that we've been able to leverage learning from other school districts like St. Paul. Next slide, please. So what I really want to talk about today is our 2 farm-to-school programs, our farm-to-school program, which has 2 components, and we've been really proactive at sourcing locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables, which has ultimately led to our program becoming the largest in the Midwest. We worked with our produce distributors to establish new relationships among regional farmers, and we've looked at providing fruits and vegetables from Michigan and Illinois. The program has grown from about $30,000 per year when we first started bringing in apples from Michigan in 2007, and actually now the majority of our apples come from Michigan throughout the year. And we've been able to expand the number of varieties that we're providing to students. We started with Red Delicious, but now we have varieties like Fuji's, Galas, and Jana Golds, which is exciting to provide our students with more exposure to healthy foods. And this has really been a win-win for us. We've been able to introduce students to these varieties and also obviously benefit the farmers in our local community. And now about 1/3 of our produce purchases come from the area surrounding Chicago. Next slide, please. So also as part of our Farm to School program, we've established a frozen local program that started also in 2007. And we really recognize, this program was started because we recognized that if we wanted to increase the amount of locally grown vegetables served in CPS, we'd have to consider the reality of the growing season here in the Midwest. So we worked with our produce distributors to establish this product that we've called Frozen Local. And what that means to us is that the food has been grown within 250 miles of Chicago. It's flash frozen at the peak ripeness for the use throughout the school year. And this has allowed us to provide our students with peas, carrots, corn, and other vegetables that are grown in our region throughout the school year. And the program has grown significantly because now other schools in our area have begun to capitalize on the opportunity as well. And so we're able to menu our frozen local vegetables at least twice a week. And we've also seen, like the chicken, that this has really increased participation. Students, far and away appreciate and like the frozen local vegetables more than they do with canned vegetables, for example. And now our local procurement has grown to $2.5 million in purchases a year, and we're really committed to increasing that amount moving forward. Next slide, please. So I just want to mention our initiatives looking ahead. As I mentioned, we're already very close to meeting the new USDA regulations, but we'll continue to move forward with that, with those efforts and that work. We're also, just in terms of looking at providing healthy food to students in our schools, we're looking at how we can support schools in eliminating some of the junk food that comes in, whether it's through the food that students or teachers or parents bring in, so that we can effectively ensure that students have access to healthy food during the school day, whether it's during their mealtime, which of course we've already made great strides in, but also in school fundraisers and celebrations, et cetera. We're also going to be looking at continued expansion of the local procurement program, as I mentioned. And one thing that's not mentioned here on the slide is that we're also engaged in several programs and initiatives to improve the environmental sustainability of our program. So, for example, we're piloting the use of biodegradable sporks. We also have funding to look specifically, and this is through a private foundation, we're looking at how to increase the environmental sustainability of our school breakfast program. And then lastly, I just want to mention, I think this is a unique and really great initiative that we've undertaken here at the Chicago Public Schools, is that we're working to get student engagement in all of these programs. So we're looking both at qualitative and quantitative data with these students. We have an advisory group that we consult with on a regular basis, who then in turn consults with their peers to ensure that the work that we're doing to improve the school food actually results in increased consumption and appreciation and approval by our students, who are, of course, our customers and the people who we all are working to ensure are healthy and able to learn. And so that is it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And Jean.
Thank you so much, Annie. Jean, if you have anything to add, be sure to jump in. But Annie, quick question for you. Someone asked if you would repeat the sugar and fiber standards for the for breakfast cereals in CPS.
Absolutely. So the cereals should contain at least 3 grams of fiber or 5 grams or fewer of sugar.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And just so you know, when you're talking about students being happy with the chicken that you guys are serving, my son is definitely one of those happy kids who loves every day that the chicken is being served and looks forward to it. Okay, our next presentation is from Stephen O'Brien. I'm going to ask a quick question of everyone before I introduce Stephen. But does your school offer salad bars to its students? And if you'll take a moment and answer, I will introduce Stephen. Stephen O'Brien has worked for the New York City Department of Education school food program since 1991. During his 21 years of experience, he has been a school food manager, technical assistance troubleshooter, deputy director of field operations, regional director for Manhattan, and is currently the citywide director of food and food support. He's worked in all of the 32 school districts and has a broad understanding of the complexities involved in delivering a quality service to the students of New York City. I look forward to hearing from his experience. And before we go on, let's close our poll. It looks like 33% absolutely are serving or do have salad bars. 21% no, and we have a handful that are not applicable, so that is interesting. And we, having said that, let's learn about New York City's efforts to have salad bars. So, Stephen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation also from Healthy Schools Campaign. As you can see from our logo, I'll echo what everyone else is saying, but we make the connection to academic performance with our slogan, Feed Your Mind. We have that in the forefront of a lot of our decisions, understanding the fact that our children need to be served and be given the best possible product on a daily basis so that they can continue to improve their academic performance when they're in school. So just to give a little bit of perspective, obviously New York State is the largest state in the Northeast. New York City is a tiny landmass compared to the state itself. And we're surrounded by New England, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and we do the best that we possibly can to support our neighbors as we continue to make policy and make decisions regarding our purchasing. New York City is composed of 5 boroughs. Oh, oops, go back. 5 boroughs, Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. In those 5 boroughs, we actually are providing service to 1.1 million students. There's over 8 million residents in New York City. 1.1 of those are students in our school system. And approximately 80% of those students are qualified for free and reduced meals if you put into it our Provision 2 schools. And so the need is great. We have a serious job ahead of us, and we take it very seriously on a daily basis. Next. There's over 1,700 schools served. There's just over 1,200 kitchens in those 1,700 schools. The remaining balance are schools that are in office buildings or off-site locations where we do a satellite service of food, which is prepared by a nearby school and then delivered by our courier service. We have over 8,000 employees. We serve over 205,000 breakfasts per day and over 623,000 lunches per day. We do not have a central kitchen. We do most of our preparation in those 1,200 kitchens that I mentioned, and our entree items are basically heat and serve, whereas everything else is made at the school site. Next. Our overarching nutritional standards exceed USDA guidelines. We have New York City regulations that are put out by our food policy coordinator that works in our mayor's office, and those standards are ahead of the USDA guidelines. In addition to that, we have worked hard to reduce the sodium, fat, cholesterol, and are eliminating high fructose corn syrup in our products. We most recently eliminated it in our chocolate milk. School food prohibits the use of trans fats and artificial flavors, color sweeteners, palm oil, etc. As you see, we're a leader in the standards of the ingredients that we put into our products, and we try very hard to make sure that we're keeping the profile of the products as clean as possible as we make decisions in our research and development process. Next. Some general ideas of some new initiatives that we've been working on, which we'll get into more detail around the salad bar expansion and a little bit on Garden to Cafe. We have also been working to incorporate water jets, which are circulating water coolers, similar to things you might see in a pizza place or a restaurant that services lemonade. It's a tub that you can put tap water in and then have it refrigerated, and students are self-serving themselves the cold water that's in that unit while they're waiting online. Breakfast program marketing, we've been working with our partners at the American Dairy Association to continue to train our frontline managers on how to speak to principals and how to sell our breakfast program, especially our breakfast in the classroom program, which is an option for principals to participate in. We have a summer meals mobile feeding program where we were able to provide 2 mobile feeding trucks, very much like what you would see on the Food Network for a food truck. We have 2 mobile trucks that we were able to purchase through a grant that we own, and we utilize during the summer meals program at locations where there are no schools nearby, such as Flushing Meadows Park and Orchard Beach, which are 2 popular locations for families to go to during the summer. And the designated eating area is just off of the truck in the adjacent area. We continue to support chefs move to school. We have a partnership with a number of organizations such as Wellness in the Schools and New York Coalition for Healthy School Food, who bring chefs to work with us, as well as some other regional restaurant chefs that are interested in partnering with specific schools. Our local and regional procurement, we have continued to survey our vendors to make sure that we're capturing the information that they are providing to us on a regular basis. Each quarter we're finding out that they are continuing to increase their voluntary purchase of local and regional product. And we worked very hard to change our definition in the past couple of years from being a mild definition to a state definition. So we're actually calling the states out rather than having a state cut off by half of the radius. We are continuing to expand our Garden to Cafe program. That is supported by our mayor's office, and we have gone in the past couple of years from having 25 Garden to Cafe programs to just around 60 at this present moment. As I mentioned before, we're meeting mayoral citywide food standards. We have also improved the competitive food environment by implementing a standard contract for all of our snacks and beverages that are served in our schools from K to 12, as well as outlining policy and procedures for foods that are brought in for fundraisers in schools. We have continued to work on sustainability initiatives, making sure that we're looking at the packaging as we continue to develop products, but also making sure that we have Trayless Tuesday, which is a program where we offer service on a paper boat instead of a styrofoam tray 1 day a week, which helps to divert styrofoam from landfills. And we are continuing to scan applications. Many of you are familiar with paper applications in school districts, and we're working hard to automate that process both through an online system, but also through a system of scanning our applications, which is no small task considering the number of applications we get each year. Philosophically, we're committed to obviously offering a nutritionally clean profile as possible, but it's not only the pre-made items that we have that are in our product line, but we also have recipes and options that are made by hand. We have a culinary concepts department headed by our executive chef. We have regional chefs that go out in the field, and currently we have a culinary academy where they're training our staff on particular preparation techniques such as seasoning, ways to prepare different types of chickens, salad bars, vegetables, etc. Each of those academies is 1 or 2 days in length, and we take the person from each kitchen that's responsible for that particular menu item and rotate them through the academy in a school nearby so that they can actually learn how to better prepare the food that we're offering. And when you look at this food philosophy, I think it's important to comment that many of the products that we serve in school environments are generally made at the school level. Yes, we do have processed items that are, pre-cooked or minimally processed that are pre-cooked, such as roasted chicken that's available in schools that is not coming in raw, but we are looking to make sure that we have it as minimally processed as possible so that everything surrounding that meal can be made on the site as much as it's feasible. So specifically, we'll get into our salad bars, which obviously most of, if not all of this is made at the school level. And it really is a good example of supporting that philosophy of having made by hand food for our students. Next. So our salad bars, offer salad bars as a self-service item, and they only offer vegetables and whole grain pasta salads. We do not offer fruits or proteins on our salad bar because they're there to complement their meal. We offer fresh romaine and spinach. We discontinued iceberg lettuce this year, and as a result, that's accompanied by things like sliced cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, and beans. We noticed that in our elementary school, obviously finger foods seem to be well liked by the students, and especially on Pizza Fridays, we've seen students taking broccoli and mushroom slices and putting them on their pre-cooked pizza and enjoying them that way on the salad bar. We've also, in our high schools, we find that there's more interest in some of the compound salads such as black bean and corn salsa, healthy coleslaws, things that are a little bit more sophisticated and advanced as far as the palate goes. Next. We offer 2 types of units. We have a 30-inch unit, which we originally started to get as part of the American Recovery Reinvestment Act of the stimulus funding in 2008. We worked to get a lower unit so that when we were rolling out salad bars in elementary schools, At the time, I believe we had somewhere around 450 salad bars in 2008, and we were working to have it more accessible to elementary school students. The traditional height of a serving unit is 36 inches, but we found that with the students in elementary schools, if you were below 3rd grade, it was very difficult for the student to see what was in the salad bar and also to maneuver the utensils necessary. So we worked to get this lower unit specified, and as a result, we were able to improve the unit by creating a little bit of a tray slide there so students have a place to place their tray while they're selecting the food from the pans. We also have long vertical pans so that students can access the vegetables from both sides. This picture has it against a wall, but if it was pulled out, you'd be able to access the same item from both sides of the salad bar. And that has been a great success, and that's something that we continue to offer to schools today. We also, Department of Health in New York City, which is trying to make sure that we continue to serve the safest meals possible. And as a result, we only allow for a refrigerated salad bar unit to be used in our system. We do not use ice packs or ice, just because many of our schools do not have the space or capability to do that. So all units have to be stainless steel, electric, and refrigerated. Next. We offer the salad bar in 2 ways. In some schools, it can be freestanding, where it's away from the serving line, which means that we are not claiming it as part of the reimbursable meal per se, because of the fact that the student is selecting the vegetables after they've gone through the line. So we're making sure they have a reimbursable meal before they leave, and we're offering the salad bar, again, as a way to increase vegetable consumption of the students. And we're also incorporating it on the line. Some of our schools, especially our secondary schools, have the space and have the serving line where the salad bar is incorporated into the serving area. Either unit is workable, and either configuration is workable, either on the traditional serving line or freestanding. What we find is that when it's freestanding, we do need to monitor it. We do not staff the salad bar, so like I mentioned earlier, they are self-service. And we do want the students to select, because we know that the students, by self-selecting, seem to eat what they take, which is the goal here. Next. This shows you a little bit of a history of the growth of our salad bars. Each year, we've continued to add more and more through grants, foundations, and support. We have brought the total now up to just around 900 out of the 1,200 kitchens have salad bars. Currently, on our New York City Mayor's Fund for Public Schools, we also are soliciting donations. So if anyone knows anyone in New York that'd like to donate for salad bars, we certainly would take the money and be happy to continue to roll them out to the additional 300 that need one. And the approximate cost of these stainless steel units is not cheap, because they are durable and long-lasting. The total package cost is somewhere around $6,000 each. Next. Just wanted to mention our Garden and Cafe program, which also has many partners, as you can see from here. We have continued to grow our Garden and Cafe program, and this really is the greatest opportunity for us to really show impact when we have a small garden, because this is New York, so there's not a lot of open space. But when there's raised beds or growing pots and things like that, we will encourage the garden coordinator to grow herbs, because we can certainly make the direct impact when we're seeing bunches of basil pureed into pesto and put onto our whole grain pastas. The students see the full circle connection between what they've grown and learned about in their academic side of things, and then see it served on the salad bars, which is just a wonderful experience to see. And we also work with them to incorporate leafy greens. We have a couple of aquaponic programs where we're actually getting leafy greens on a weekly basis. We work with our Land Trust University, Cornell University, to make sure that those soil tests are done and that the sampling of the growing material is done correctly, so that we can ensure food safety on a daily basis at these Garden and Cafe programs. And then there's just a couple of pictures here just to show you some visuals of some of the gardens. And the students participating eating that pesto I was mentioning. And that's about it. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Always happy to support.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your presentation. That was fabulous. Now it is 1:45, so that leaves us plenty of time for Q&A for questions. So I'm going to kind of open it up for questions. So please, we have a questions box on your webinar panel. Feel free to type in your question, and we'll get to it to the best of our ability. We'll open it right now. My colleague, Alex Scheibe, will start going through them and start asking questions of our panelists. So let's get going.
Great, thank you, Mark. So we've had a number of questions come in, so thanks everybody that sent them in. And as Mark mentioned, feel free to just keep typing them and sending them our way, and we will ask them of our panelists. So since Stephen actually just finished, I'll give him the first question since it's fresh in everybody's mind. We had a couple questions come in kind of wanting to know how the updated USDA meal standards will impact your salad bar, and how if that will result in any changes to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Because we're offering just vegetables on our salad bar, and because generally it's an extra on top of the meal that we're serving as a reimbursement, we don't anticipate it throwing us off for our meal standards. I do understand that there's a calorie maximum and a minimum with the standards, and we're planning for that. We're in talks with our state education department because this is going to be a concern when they come to do reviews. But I think everyone is on the same page as to wanting to make sure that we're incorporating as many vegetables into the students' diets as possible, and also controlling the calories. But as I mentioned earlier, when you're talking about vegetables, there's usually very low calories in the products we're serving.
Great, thank you. And a follow-up to that is, do the vegetables that the students get through the salad bar, do they count towards the fruit or vegetable requirements?
Only if it's on the serving line, meaning that it's before our point of sale. If it's not, and we can't validate what was taken, then we just leave it as an extra away from the serving line, and we don't count it as part of the offer versus serve or the minimum requirements when the student's leaving for a reimbursable meal.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And now a question for Annie or Jean. Could you give examples of some of the cereals that you serve in Chicago Public Schools?
Sure. This is Jean. We serve Kellogg cereals, and also we work with a company in California named Organic Milling. So on the Kellogg side, we menu Special K, Corn Flakes, Rice Krispies, and the Kashi brand. Kashi Heart to Heart is a favorite. We also serve Mini Wheat. And from Organic Milling, we're working with a couple of new products. There's a flakes product that students love. It has the taste profile that students enjoy, and it meets both the fiber and the sugar requirements of the Nutrition Standards.
And Jean, as a follow-up, are these Kellogg cereals the same cereals we would buy in the stores, or are they specially formulated and or packaged for the school setting?
Well, we work with the Kellogg's Away from Home division, the food service division, and the Kellogg cereals that we purchase are packaged for school food service. So they're packaged in a bowl pack, so they meet the appropriate grain bread requirements.
Great, thank you, Jean. Another question for Stephen. So how were schools selected to receive salad bars?
Schools are selected to receive salad bars. All of our high schools have salad bars, all of our secondary schools, and most of our middle schools. So really our push now is in elementary schools. So we know we have 300 schools that still need salad bars. The priority goes to schools that are interested, obviously. So about half of those principals and school communities have expressed interest in wanting salad bars. So now we're prioritizing those and also trying to solicit donations to cover the cost. In addition to that, after interest, we also are trying to push them out quietly in the sense that we don't need to really wait for somebody to ask for the salad bar. We just need to show it as a value-added service so that once it's there, it's very difficult to take away, in other words.
Great, thank you. And this is a question, actually, if all of our panelists could maybe weigh in on this one. What impact have the changes that you've made in your district had on your budget, and have meal prices increased as a result of these changes? So if anybody, any of our panelists want to take a stab at that, feel free to jump in.
Sure, this is Annie from Chicago Public Schools. So we work with 2 food service providers, and we've been very collaborative with them in implementing our new nutrition standards and pursuing the Farm to School program and some of the other initiatives that I mentioned. And those actually have not the initiatives have not impacted, have not increased the meal costs for us at all.
This is Jean in St. Paul, and we have, in fact, needed to raise prices just because of the requirement for meal price equity. We have not seen a significant increase in food costs, partly as we've increased the portions of fruits and vegetables and legume salads. We've actually been able to reduce the amount of protein that we offer, and that has helped us. We've been using the requirement of a maximum or opportunity for a maximum of 10 ounces over a week's time, and I think people will find as they're moving towards that, the new meal pattern, that they'll see that they may actually be able to reduce some protein costs and be able to afford, hopefully, some more of the fruits and vegetables.
And from New York City's perspective, we have not really seen an increase in costs with these initiatives either, because what we're doing is trying to get more students to participate in our meal program. So as your participation rates increase, it offsets the cost of some of these initiatives.
Great.
That's a great point.
We have another question. This may be general, but I'm going to target this to Chicago. The question is, or the concern is the obstacle of being in a school that doesn't have a kitchen and then might only have a warming kitchen. How do you work with schools that are not able to do prep of fresh food with it because of their existing facilities?
That's a good question. I first want to mention that the nutrition standards that I referenced are applicable to all of our schools. So whether the kitchen is a warming kitchen or a cooking kitchen, the same nutrition standards apply. And in working with both of our food service vendors, we have been really proactive about pursuing, equity across the district. So just as we've been able to pursue the Farm to School program with Chartwell Thompson, our other food service provider that services our warming kitchens has also done a lot to source regional produce, both fruits and vegetables. So, we are constantly looking at both the cooking and the warming kitchens at how to improve the food, improve the quality, and source, nutritional food that is as local as possible. And of course, the salad bars have been another thing that we've pursued in both the Chartwell Thompson cooking schools and also the warming schools. So we've been very proactive on with our entire district at pursuing these initiatives, and we'll continue to do the same moving forward.
Great, thank you, Annie. I don't know if any of our other panelists want to weigh in on the issue of providing these types of meals to schools that don't necessarily have a kitchen that they can prepare food in. But Annie, that was a great response, and thank you for sharing that. We have another question, and this, I'm not sure, hopefully one of our panelists will be able to weigh in, but just wanting to know about efforts to improve snacks and fundraisers in schools. I'm not sure if any of our panelists have experience with working on these issues, but you have all spoken about wonderful changes that you've made in the district, and this question came in regarding, there are other issues outside of the school meal program, and have any of you worked to improve the quality of snacks that are offered or implementing healthy fundraisers in the schools?
I'd like to answer that. It's not, obviously it's a community issue. When you're looking at that issue, it's going to change from school to school. So what I would encourage you to do would be first to look at some resources that are available through the CPPW grant that just finished in New York City. Nationally it just finished, but in New York, the New York City Department of Health came up with a really great guide. I think you can Google it for healthy fundraisers. And so that gives you a bunch of different options regarding fundraising activities that you can present to schools rather than them being food-based. Also, on the center of our website for the school food, if you Google School Food New York City and you go to the bottom of the school food website in the center, you'll see there's a frequently asked question document that gives you some information about our policies here and about the types of beverages and items that can be served in schools, as well as a chancellor's regulation that stipulates exactly how frequent fundraisers can be held in schools, as well as how frequent students can do fundraisers versus parents, et cetera. So it's a pretty comprehensive approach that we took in New York, not only from a school food side of things, but from our Department of Health side of things and our Chancellor's office from the academic side of things, trying to really improve the landscape in the school.
This is Jean from St. Paul, and I would, echo what Stephen is saying in terms of getting the community involved, because without someone from outside of school food promoting and supporting healthy fundraisers, it's going to be a real challenge. So get that champion, I think, and have them help the school food service operation.
This is Annie. We, are looking. Actually, we've used the New York Guide for Healthy Fundraising, and it's excellent. So thank you for making that resource available. We're doing a lot, as I mentioned earlier, to look at what are called competitive foods, or foods that are sold or available outside the school meal program. And in addition to a lot of the support that we're providing to schools through technical assistance sessions, and we've actually even offered some grant funding to be able to help subsidize their efforts to hold healthy fundraisers. But we're also looking at food like snacks and the food for celebrations, et cetera, that are being used in schools. And so we have a vending policy that was passed in 2004, and we're looking to update that to reflect some of the USDA's criteria and guidance. But we also, as we're looking to craft a policy, which it sounds like New York already has, we're looking to craft a policy about what types of food students and teachers and parents are able to bring in from outside. We actually surveyed over 750 parents to get their feedback about what they thought should be allowed in schools. And so we're sort of using that as a foundation to then build a policy recommendation that we'll be presenting to the Board of Education in the next few months. But certainly I would agree with both of the other panelists, and I think getting not just somebody, a teacher to be a champion, but also parents and students, especially at the high school level. So we'll be working with our student groups and our student advisory group to ensure that they may not be huge fans of the policy, but that they understand the impetus and can help us spread the word about it.
Great, thank you so much. That was really great input from all the panelists. And actually following up, Annie, there was a question about the student advisory group, but I know you have to hop off at 2, so I just want to ask that. How do you recruit students for the student advisory group, and how do you engage them? How frequently are you meeting? If you could provide some more information about that student advisory group, there's quite a bit of interest about it.
Great, I can answer that, Alex. It's Jean again with Annie here in Chicago. We started working with an organization called the Mix a Challenge Organization, which is a student advocacy group here in Chicago, about 3 years ago. And the program has evolved, and where we are this year is the mix of folks actually help us recruit the students. They have relationships with about 20 different high schools around the country and around the city. So they recruit the students, and then we work with them to go through a kind of a initiation learning program at the end of the summer. Then we meet with them. It works out to be about once a month, where we work together to craft quantitative surveys, and the students execute the survey, and then we also meet to review the results, and we've had a couple focus groups in addition to the quantitative surveys.
Great, thanks, Jean.
According to my time, we have 2 o'clock, so this is the scheduled time to end. But our questions seem to keep going in. We're going to try to get to a few more. So with your permission, we're going to continue to go for about 5 more minutes. If anyone has to get off, we understand. Please, thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you need to go, please get going. But we're going to take 5 more minutes to try to get through a couple of more questions. So let's just keep plowing through them.
Great. So we have a question this would be for Chicago and then for St. Paul as well. In reference to the fresh chicken users, are the raw chickens frozen or fresh when your cooking schools receive them?
This is Jean again. Annie's just stepped out. The chicken that we bring in Chicago is frozen. So we bring it in frozen, and then it's thawed and then cooked fresh in the school.
In St. Paul, we're receiving fresh chicken.
Great, thank you both. Stephen, we've had a few questions wanting to know if you've looked at plate waste from your salad bar, and if you require the kids to sanitize their hands beforehand, or if you've implemented just any specific procedures kind of around making sure healthy measures are taken.
Sure. Many of our schools have hand washing facilities right before the serving lines, but not all of them. We do not do hand sanitizers on the serving line or provide hand sanitizers. And the maintenance of the salad bars is looked at very closely because we don't want anything to be done to the food. So each period we put out a fresh pan. We use shallow pans. Usually the standard is 2 inches deep, so that we're putting a small amount out for each period and making it fresh each period rather than letting it sit out there for 2 hours or 2.5 hours while all of the students are being served. We have not conducted a plate waste study formally, but we have anecdotally made many observations. And generally what we're seeing is that in an elementary school, you may see students come through the serving line getting their regular meal, and approximately 30% of those students, taking additional items from the salad bar. And that, I think, is a win-win because obviously those students getting turned on to vegetables at a young age hopefully will be long-lasting. That's yet to be seen, but not a particular plate waste study. And again, it's self-service, so the feeling is that it's not being forced by us, that the student is actually selecting the cucumbers or the cherry tomatoes or the celery sticks, etc.
Great, thanks. And then a question for any of our panelists wanting to know who's responsible for managing a farm-to-school program.
Well, this is Jean from St. Paul. I think that's a really great question, and I don't think there's one answer for that. There's so many different models with farm to school. Ours is managed really by our department in terms of working with a processor. Our local produce comes from local farms, but it comes through someone that can chop it, peel it, dice it, and get it to us. So we have the advantage of using local produce, but not necessarily having a truck come to the back door and have to deal with it that way. Others?
I don't have anything to add other than our Garden and Cafe programs. We're looking to make sure that they're certified as being soil tested each year and making sure that the growing medium they're using is acceptable. It's usually right there in the school, so they are giving a receipt to our manager of how many pounds or bunches of items they're receiving so it can be put into inventory. And we have a few schools that are working to do a community-supported agriculture donation. And in that case, we're doing the same kind of certification with the farm that we're going to be partnering with that might be donating products such as turnips or potatoes to the kitchen. But that's about it.
And this is Jean in Chicago. In Chicago, at Chartwell, certainly, we work with our produce distributors who in turn have established relationships with local farmers and continue to do so. So we work in conjunction with the distributors. That is, local farmers and producers may come to us, or they may approach the produce distributor, and so we work hand in hand together to make sure that we just continue to try to identify new sources of produce that are going to work within our program.
Great, thank you, everyone. This is going to be our last question, and it's going to be for Stephen. One of our participants wants to know how much labor time goes into setting up the salad bar, and are you buying pre-cut vegetables, or are your food service workers cutting them before they go into the salad bar?
That's an excellent question. Many of our items are pre-cut. We do have some items that we have to break down ourselves, such as our healthy coleslaw. We're making those recipes ourselves with heads of cabbage. We do not add any additional labor to the school. So a school that's serving the 5 components, offering the 5 components of our regular service on our serving line, would just have a salad bar brought into their location, and we would ask that they would incorporate the preparation of those ingredients into their day-to-day activities, believe it or not. So there is a couple of weeks of reworking people's work schedules and the flow of production in that site that we do provide some support with our regional chefs. Also, our managers understand now that we have so many salad bars out there. So many of our managers understand what that change is and what needs to be done. but we have not provided any specific help. My experience has been that the salad bar preparation usually takes, for approximately 500 students, it usually takes about 45 minutes for someone to use mostly pre-cut items to put out there on a daily basis and making sure that they're pre-panned and ready to go once the service starts.
And if you look at that salad bar as an alternative to pre-packing things, I mean, there's labor when it comes to cupping fruits and vegetables. And what we found is that if things are pre-cupped, the kids end up having to take them, and they aren't necessarily the items that they want. So a salad bar, in my mind, what we've seen is that it actually reduces waste, and it can be a very cost-effective approach to getting kids to get all of those different colors that they need. We do a food waste recycling program where our leftover food go to a pig farmer, and we can really visually see what's going into the trash, and generally speaking, it's minimal because the kids have chosen what they want to take.
Great. I think that's a great comment to end on. Let me, Jean, Annie, Stephen, I want to say thank you so much for your time. For everyone who's on the still listening, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I hope it was an interesting, or I know it was an interesting presentation. Hopefully we all were able to take some nuggets away from this and learn a little bit. If you are interested, we still hope you can join us in our next webinar on May 1st, the small business side of improving school food. We'll hear from small businesses and how they've gotten involved in participating in school food program and hearing about their perspectives of being part of the solution. So thank you all very much. And again, we will have these presentations archived and up on our website within the next 2 days. Thank you, and until next time, enjoy. Take care.